Hi there, Joy here. Welcome to take 2 of my watercolor mandala experiment. As I said, if you've watched the disaster that was my first one, well, not really a disaster, it was a learning experience. I've decided to change a few little things to see if I can make it work a little better. And one of the things I decided to change was the fact that I always tape down my paper, as I did with the first one. And for whatever reason, even when it's taped down, I always seem to get a warple where it goes like this in the center, and I have a valley, and of course all the water runs down the valley. And if you don't want it to run down the valley, because of course as a mandala I'm trying to make it round, and it's not very round if it all runs to the center. So I was a little frustrated with that. So I figured if it's not going to work to tape it down anyways, screw it, I'm not going to tape it down. So what I did instead, as you can see, is I pre-drew out my circles with my pencil, and I put a ruler on either side, and I'm hoping the little bit of weight from the ruler is going to keep it from doing that bend in the center. Now, it may backfire on me, and I may end up getting a bend in the other direction. I hope not. It doesn't usually seem to go lengthwise. It always seems to be the short side that warples. So I'm hoping this will help. The other thing I learned, sorry, I'm multitasking. The other thing I learned from my first experiment was that my center needs more space to spread out, because I had a small center. I'll show you this actually. It's still drying, the first one, so here it is. And I put my yellow in the center. See how the warple does this whole river down the center? Which is frustrating. So I put my yellow in the center, and then the pink was so close to the yellow that it kind of took over. So I'm giving my center more space to spread. I also decided that because that spread so quickly that I wasn't going to do the first 2 colors one right after the other. I'll put the center in, I'll let it do its thing for a little while, and then I think I'm going to start from the outside and work in. Because I think that way it gives it a chance to kind of set into the paper and dry a little bit so that the next color won't completely take it over. I may end up with some blooms, but I don't think that's going to be a big problem. So the other thing, that's 2 changes I've decided to make. The third change I've decided to make is I think I'm going to wet my paper as I go. It was drying on me anyways because it dries too fast when I'm trying to do a large area. So I thought what I will do is I will try to control the running of the paint a little better by wetting only the part that I want to run, and then doing the next ring and then the next ring. So I might wet 2 rings at a time if I want those colors to run together, but I don't want to wet the whole darn page like I did the first time. So, like I said, I'm going to start with the center. Oh shoot, I always do that. I always forget to wash my brush out because I just had to make more blue paint. I have the worst memory of any human being I know. So here I have to make more water again. Like early old timers or something. I don't know what it is. Alright. See if I can do this without blue this time. So I'm going to wet my center. It's still got a little tiny bit of blue in it. Isn't that nice? I love the brush. The brush is fabulous, but it holds so much paint that I have a hard time washing out the paint, even when I remember. It's always just got this little touch of whatever color was in it before. So maybe I'm not patient enough when I'm rinsing my brush. All right, so I'm going to see if I can't get that light to shine a little better so I can see where it's wet. And this, since it does have a tiny bit of blue smidge in it, it might not come out very bright, but we'll see. So here's my yellow in the center, and I'm going to try and dot it right in the center, so that it has a nice round bloom to it. That works much better than the first time around, so that's a bonus. And I'm going to leave that alone and let it spread to that whole center, or at least most of that center. And I'm going to try to move out to, I think I'll move out to this ring and wet it down. The whole idea here, if you didn't watch the first video, because it was probably a disaster and you went, oh my god, that's ugly. The idea here, I want to get a nice background, so I don't want this to be very detailed, really. I just want the colors to blend nicely. And then once it's dry, I want to get out my Indian ink pens and build a mandala around it. See, it still has that tiny bit of blue in that blue brush. I want to build a mandala around it with my India ink pens. So I'm just trying to get a nice colorful background. I've seen these all over the place too, and I have no idea how they're doing it. I haven't watched any videos on it. I'm just kind of making this up as I go and hoping for the best. So this ring in the center here is going to, I'm trying to get darker as I go. So I was going to go yellow, pink, purple. And then I was going to do, I think it was orange, no, green, orange, and blue. And I know that's not exactly in order, but I want the orange in the center between the blue and the green for contrast. So the next color I want to do is pink in that small ring, so I'm going to skip ahead to the purple for this bigger ring. And once the purple and the yellow have a chance to settle in, then I should be able to put the pink in and let it kind of blend freely between the purple and the yellow. But the last time I had problems with it running so quickly that the pink took over, as I said, took over the center. So right now it's not doing anything overly exciting because obviously I'm not letting it blend with anything but itself. I just want to kind of fill some of that space. And see if I can't rinse my brush out a little better this time. Now I have to decide, do I want to start from way out at the outside or do I want to skip ahead? Because I don't want the two side-by-side colors. So this would be green and this would be orange. Maybe I'll skip ahead to the orange. I'll just alternate colors. And then once they, like I said, once they've had a little more time to do their thing, I will put the middle color between them and let it do its thing. It blended so much last time that I didn't have a lot of, it didn't blend the way I thought it would. Because I can't lay down a very smooth line, I get all these blooms everywhere and it was hard to control. And one of the problems I have with watercolor is I want it to look the way I want it, and it's hard to just let it do its thing. This is my exercise in trying to force myself to let it do its thing, or at least the first one was, and I didn't like it. I just had this issue with control, I guess. I don't know. So what did I say? Purple, green, so this is going to be orange. All right. At least it landed in the right spot. I didn't mix up an awful lot of orange. I might have to mix up some more, but all right. So that can do its thing. And I think my yellow is now hopefully settled in there enough that if I put a little bit of pink around it, it won't get taken over. I also have this bad habit of having I'm not paying attention and I stick my dirty brush in my clean water instead of my dirty water, and then I have to keep rinsing out my clean water. Hopefully I'm not the only person that does that. Alright, so I'm going to wet both edges, trying to make sure I wet both edges, the purple and the yellow, to make sure everything goes together. I think I missed a spot. It's kind of hard to tell until you actually tilt your head around a lot and see with the light shining on it whether it's got a glare to it, or not a glare, but a shine. If there's a shine, then usually it means it's nice and wet. And see, now this time the paper is popping up in the center. That may actually kind of work out for me. All right. So I don't want to just do lines, I think, because the lines are getting a little boring. I want it to have some shape. So I think I'm going to do compass points. like so. And then I can use that in my mandala pattern. That's my thought. We'll see how it goes. The paper is popping up in the center, so maybe that means everything will run more to the outside than the inside, so the yellow won't have as much of a chance to interact with the pink. And that does look like, well, maybe it's running toward the center slowly, so maybe eventually it'll hit the center. We'll see. This part seems to be heading for the center. All right, I kind of like the way that worked out. I don't think I want to do this one yet because I don't want every color interacting together until I want it to. So I think that what I will do is I will work on my outside. I haven't decided, do I want it to be, I guess I have to nudge right up against the orange for it to do something. So I have to make good sure my edge is wet so that everything can spread. And I think, I mean, usually on the outside I want a nice solid ring of something. Obviously, if I don't wet the rest of the paper, it's not going to spread out and do any kind of blooms outside of my circle. So I guess I'll have to do, if I decide to do something fancier around the outside of the circle, I will have to do that using my markers. I did it again. I just washed my brush in my clean water. Every bloody time. Every bloody time. All right, so blue. What am I going to do with my blue? I wonder, I can't move that off of there. I wonder if I make little loops if it'll actually stay that way or not. Or if it's just going to fill in that whole centerpiece. Maybe. This one didn't spread as much as the others. Must not have been as wet. Hopefully these are centered-ish. I think I kind of like where these are going, so I'm just going to set some more in between. I shouldn't have let that bloom happen right there. Should make sure if I let go of it, I let go in the center. One thing I have noticed is people seem to be able to control where the majority of the paint is by just where they pick their brush up. And I forget while I'm in the middle of doing what I'm doing that works that way. And then I pick my brush up at the wrong time and I end up with a big bloom. Except now if I pick my brush up in the middle, because I didn't want it lopsided, now it's filling in the center. So I guess I'm not winning no matter what I do here. I have to make sure I have a bloom on each end. Maybe that'll work if I put a bloom on each end. The one thing about mandala, it doesn't really matter how they look, but it works better if it's symmetrical. I'm just going to make sure I have that bloom on each end. And that looks kind of boring to me, so I'm going to join the tops of my circles by just putting a little bit of blue along the top edge. Like so. Oops, see, I let go at the wrong time. And I'm finding it really hard not to move this ruler. But it does seem to be working better than having it taped down for me. The center popped up, like I said, but the center's okay if it pops up because I'm doing a round thing, so it just gets the colors to flow outward instead of to the center of the fold in the page. Okay, I'm liking the way this looks. This looks kind of cool. So there are a few parts that aren't running very much, probably because there's less water on the page. However, I do have kind of patterns, kind of petal-like patterns. I must have really not wet that very well in that spot. Petal-like patterns. Moving into my orangey color. And it didn't reach all the way to the pink, to the yellow, but it did blend with the purple pretty well. Almost too well. So I think I might want to put a little more purple along that edge, just to kind of try and make sure that it's got some pure purple somewhere. That's what I'm going to try and do. Make sure the purple goes along the edge. I don't want to have it all overpowered by the pink. All right, there I go into my clean water again. So now we have to decide what to do with the center. And I have a weird idea, and it might look really horrible. It might really not work at all. But, see, I'm getting one little valley right there. But it also might turn out kind of cool. What I'm thinking is that I want to wet this part. I don't want it to touch the orange or the purple on the edge. I want to wet the center of it. But then I want to draw lines, I think, from one to the other with my green. So it'll only theoretically run where the lines touch. So I don't know how much my lines will spread. I wonder if I should try to control how much it spreads by only wetting where I want the paint to go, and then letting it do its thing on the ends. I think that's what I'll try. So should I use my angle brush to try and make it nice and exact? Because I could kind of just go, that might be kind of boring. Why be boring when you can be weird, right? So I'm going to make a line that doesn't touch from there to there, from there. It's really hard to tell where it's not touching because you have to kind of look for this shine. I want it, no, I do want it to touch, don't I? I do want it to touch. What am I talking about? I do want it to touch. I want to get it wide enough that it's not just a tiny little itty bitty skinny line. I want it to be a decent sized line. So there's my compass points. I think I'll do my compass points and see how much it spreads, because it looks kind of like too much white space right now. But if this part spreads a lot, then if I put one in the center, it'll just be all green. Because whether you can see it, it's all turning purple right now because that's the part that's strongest. However, it's going to be green. And I think I might even switch brushes to my skinnier brush for this, just to make good and sure I don't put a big blob somewhere I don't want it to be. So cross our fingers and see how this goes. So far so good. As long as I end my line on the outside so my bloom is on the outside, then they should all look the same. I hope. I'm not sure what kind of color I'm going to get with purple and green together. That may have been a bit too much green. It's funny, the center part with the purple isn't really blooming at all at this point. None of these have blooms, possibly because, as I said, the center of the page is coming up. That's where it's warbled, is the center of the page. And so, is that too boring? Do I need to go and put more lines in between them? This is fun. This looks kind of like a tree. Maybe that's what I'll do in my design. I'll turn it into a tree. Because it looks kind of like branches coming out. Actually, that looks like branches. The tree and some branches and orange leaves that fall and then sky. That's kind of cool. I think, however, that I do want to add more. So I'm going to put some more lines in between. And then try it again. It didn't spread as much as I was worried that it would, so I think I can afford to have more green blooms than I do currently have. Hopefully I mixed up enough green for this. All right. I'm trying to avoid the thought that it looks kind of like a mushroom cloud. I'm going to stick with the tree thought. That one really looks like a tree. That's turned out really cool. It's giving me a really nice bloom. So I think this definitely worked better controlling the water than it did with my first attempt, where I just kind of let it all run free. And it definitely ran free. More freedom than I really wanted to give it, I guess, is how I want to look at it. Now, I need to touch up some of these lines, maybe, just to make sure there's lots of good green stuff going on. Excuse me for sniffling. How I ended up with a really hairy, sheddy dog when I'm allergic to dogs, I'm really not sure. Actually, I am sure. I met the man that owned the dog. And I'm pretty sure if I asked him to pick between me and the dog, I'd be out the door. So here I am, snuffling. I apologize. All right. So we didn't get the blooms here. Maybe I want the blooms here. Oops, shoot. Stuck my paintbrush in the purple. I was thinking about purple. I think I might want a little bit of bloom on the purple, so I'm just going to touch a little bit on the end of each one just to make sure that there is some form of bloom. Almost out of green. So this might be all I can do with it. All right. So the only thing I'm thinking now, I can't quite decide. This is too strong. I need to wet that. I can't quite decide if I like my center. I always seem to have issues with my center. I'm just going to soften this a bit because I think there just wasn't enough water there. I don't know if it'll do much at this point. It's kind of dry. But anyways, I like the way the yellow came out nice and round, but it's not touching the pink at all. At all. Like not even a little. I can't decide if I want to leave it like that. I suppose I do need some white space. Maybe I will leave it like that. I do, however, think that I need a stronger outside edge. So I think I want to go over my blue edge just a little bit. See if I can't have a stronger blue color on my edge. A little darker. This is the darkest blue I have on my palette, so aside from adding black to it, or darkening the value of it by adding more paint, that's about all I can really do. I just think it needs a strong edge. That might do it. Might do it. The rest is going to get done with markers, as I said. I'm going to go over top and draw some designs on it with the markers. Or pens, I guess you'd call them. India ink pens. So this is not the end product by any means, but it is a nice colorful base. All right, I think I'm fairly happy with it. I somehow wandered off the screen here a little bit. There we go. So I think I'm fairly happy with it compared to my first attempt, which is here. And again, with this one, I wet the whole page and then I tried to do my rings. And there was so much running and blooming and stuff that it's just kind of messy looking. I may not even attempt to do the mandala on it. I really not happy with the way it turned out. But you never know. It's still kind of wet. So maybe when I come home from work tonight and it's all dry, I'll look at it and say, that's not so bad. And I might take the time to put the pen mark on it just to see how it does turn out. The pen will be the focal point. The color is background, so I suppose it's not that important. But anyway, this one I really like. I like the way that my little trees are going here. I'm not sure about the center, but again, I'm going to do focal point with pen. So we shall see. I will let it dry and we will take a look for part 2 when we add the ink. Thanks for coming. See you soon. Good morning. At least I think it's morning. Is it morning? Nope, it's not quite morning. Good afternoon. Joy here from Joyously Handmade and Adventures in Menopause. And I am back with this project that I was working on before. I had to let it dry, and it's been a day or two since I had a few things going on. So while it dried, this is a background, as you can see. It's very basic. And I basically, I made some rings with my compass. And I laid down some watercolor in various patterns just to let it run together to give me a background because I want to make a mandala and I wanted it to have some color in the background. This is the second one I did. The first one turned out, I thought, really, really horrible. And I didn't like it, and so I set it aside with full intentions of throwing it away once it dried. And I was going to use this to finish my project. When I got back today, I actually liked it. It didn't turn out that bad. So it dried a little nicer than I expected. It still ran a little bit more than I'd expected. So I actually pulled it up and finished it and put a mandala on top of it. So here's the first one that I didn't like. Now that it's finished, I do like it. So sometimes it's just a fresh set of eyes. Sometimes it's just letting it dry and do its thing. But anyways, I had done this as my second attempt. And I really liked it. And in my head, what I've got here, the way it turned out, these to me look like trees. And when it was wet, it was a lot easier to picture. I don't know if you can see this if I pull it up. Some of the blooms, when I made these lines that came out when it was wet, looked to me like trees because they were kind of branching out into the orange. And I thought, okay, I've got trees, and my orange could be autumn leaves, and the blue looks like sky. So to me, this kind of became the earth. It doesn't make sense to have the sun in the middle of the earth, but hey, you know, it's supposed to be some sort of hot something in the center of the earth, so maybe it does make some sort of sense. But in my head, what I've decided to do is I'm going to make these into tree trunks, and I'm going to try and wind and twist some leaves and tree trunk branches together between my various trees. Now there is some very faint pencil guidelines still there. I am going to try and make, well, maybe not. With this one, what I did is I made some other pencil guidelines this way so that I could keep it symmetrical. I'm going to have to go and erase those at some point, but you can barely see them. With this one though, because I'm going only by what's on the branches and things, maybe I won't bother. Maybe I'll do it all freehand. The branches are kind of on compass points, but they're probably not exact because I just kind of drew lines as I went and allowed it to run to the top and the bottom. So maybe I'll just start out. I don't even have a center for my circle, but I kind of want the circle to be the sun. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to create myself a circle, and I'm just going to make a sun to go with all the rest of my theory on what I'm doing with this. And I'm just doing it random. It's not going to be symmetrical, it's not going to be perfect. However, I think it's going to be kind of cool. Oh, 1 second. All right, sorry about that. My neighbor lost his dog recently, and he missed walking a dog so much he's been using my dog to take for walks. It's kind of we tease him about it, said he's got a therapy dog. Anyways, good for my dog. My dog gets to go for lots of walks. All right, so there's my sun. I'm kind of happy with that. It's just kind of basic. And I need to do something. I did put some little blooms when I did my pink. I kind of did circles. I don't know what those are going to be. At some point, I kind of need to do something with it. And I'm going to skip over it for now and go to my trees. So so far I've been using, I don't know how to say this. I don't know if it's Faber or Faber-Castell India ink. So it is waterproof. I could have done it beforehand. As I explained, I was going to do my mandala beforehand and then add the watercolor, but I'm not very good at the watercolor yet. I can't control where it goes. So I figured that I would be better off to put the watercolor down first and then follow what the watercolor does rather than hoping it goes where I want it to. So that's why we're doing it this way. But I am using my waterproof pens anyways because they're a nice dark black, and I do have 4 different sizes. So this was the medium, the second largest one. And I'm going to go down to a finer one because I want to try and do some I don't know how good I'm going to get at this, but I want to do some kind of intricate branches with these. And I'm going to, because I don't normally try to turn my page when I've got the camera going because sometimes I go off frame and you can't see it. But I don't know if I can do this very well if I've got my wrist at a weird angle. So I'm going to try and do my compass point trees first. And I'm just going to outline my tree branches, and I'm going to do some curly cues and things like so. And I'm hoping that at some point these all look like they're kind of woven together. That's my plan with this. That's kind of what I pictured in my head. It very seldom turns out the way I expect it to. But because of the way the paint went and the blooms that they did, that's probably not very good there. That's just kind of what I pictured happening. And so that's what I'm trying to do. Something along this line. Closer, see if you can see it. And I'm going to do these compass points first, and then I'm going to do the center compass points, and then I'll do the ones in between, because since I'm weaving them together, I might not have a lot of space for these ones. There may not be much necessary for it, because there really isn't that much gap between the tree trunks. I don't know if I'm going to have to add something to give the impression of leaves or not. I may not. That might look more like a flame than a tree branch. Maybe. We'll see. And I kind of have to do something for the roots. So I'm just going to go kind of like so. I'm not going to do anything major for the roots because I want the attention to be up at the top. And so I'm going to go to my other opposite compass point and try and make sure I'm on the screen. Maybe I can follow kind of what the paint did. This may end up looking really weird. I don't know. But that's the idea that popped into my head when I saw it, is that it looked like trees. And that's why we're going to try and do it to look like trees. And if it doesn't work out, oh well. Maybe it looks like an octopus. Yeah, I don't know. So, next compass point. This tree is a little warply. He's going to have a little more character than the others. And he seems to go way out, like so. So I don't know what's going on with my, what I'm going to do about leaves. Maybe I'll add some leaves. Because the orange to me struck me as being autumn leaves. That one's a little weird. Some extra trunk going on here somehow. That one turned out really odd. Maybe in the midst of all the other stuff you won't notice. Who knows? Who knows? Look at this weird claw in the middle of it. Alright. So this might take a little while to do, but hopefully it turns out cool. So I'm going to try to stop talking while I do this, because like I say, it might take a while, and I'm hoping that I can kind of speed up the film afterwards so you don't have to listen to me babble through it all. So now that you have the idea what I'm doing, I'm going to go ahead and finish all the trees. And then I can hopefully speed up that section before I come back in and we talk about what else we're going to do next. Alright, so I have finished my trees, as you can see. Kind of think it's pretty cool. I went around a couple times because there were a couple spots that looked a little empty and a couple trees that need a little filling in, but I think I've got them fairly well intertwined. So now I have to figure out what to do with the rest. Excuse me. As you can see, they've kind of, some of them have gone outside of my sky, my circle, but I still want it to look like sky. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just randomly make cloud shapes with my blue edge. And I'm just going to go all the way around like that so it does look kind of like clouds. Hopefully this stays on screen the whole time. So far I'm liking this. It's organic. I mean, it's not exactly like it's symmetrical or anything. But I like the way it's turning out. And sometimes I kind of have to go way out into the white just to avoid my tree leaves and branches and such. That's the other thing. I wasn't sure what I was going to do about leaves. But having seen my trees, now that I've got them all intertwined, I don't think I really need leaves. I think the orange is enough of a backdrop to give it the impression of. So I'm not going to worry about it. So there we've got it so far. So I just need to figure out what to do with my center. And I've got the pink blooms. I don't know what I'm doing with those yet. I kind of like the idea of putting spirals there. So maybe that's what I'll do. I'm going to go back to my medium size marker, pen, whatever you want to call it. And I'm going to put spirals just randomly over these blooms. And obviously they're not all the same size, and I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to build some spirals, like so. And then I'm going to fill spirals around them. Just want to make sure I close them off. Like so. I'm going to go the other direction, just for interest. Am I still on the screen? I hope so. That one's probably going to be lopsided. But I'm not too worried about it. I don't know what these spirals represent for my whole little world here. But I kind of like it. Now, do I continue doing spirals or do I leave it? I think I'm going to continue doing spirals. I kind of like the way it's going together. So I'm just going to do kind of in between each in this gap, and then I think I'll go back later and I'll fill in smaller ones in some of the areas that don't have it. Just so that it's all kind of random. Am I still on the screen? I hope. Every so often I have to pop my head up and make sure that I haven't wandered off. I think I'm doing better this time. Usually I have to put a colored mat down so I can tell where I'm under where the camera picks up the picture, because I kind of wander when I'm working. I don't want to interfere with my roots. So I'm doing some smaller spirals just in the holes. Just to fill it all in. something there. Can fit a nice big one in there. I can fit a bigger one in there. Feels like these spirals should mean something. I'm sure they do at some point in my subconscious. But I really like the way it's working out. Somehow it works with the whole earth, trees, everything bound together kind of theme of my mandala. It's definitely a different mandala than anything I've tried before. But I do really like the way it's working out. I bet you were really happy to have that period where you didn't listen to me babble. But sorry, I'm back. I went right over my tree root with that one. Oops. So the trees themselves took quite a while to do, just because I was trying to get them all wound together. But the rest of this mandala is actually going really quickly. It's just kind of flying by. Spirals are obviously kind of a quick and easy thing to fill with. There's not a lot of thought and intent required. As long as you start out with a circle that fits in your gap, it's pretty straightforward. I think I need one more in there. A couple little circular lines in there. There. I like it. I think it looks really kind of cool. So it didn't turn out anything like the first one, which is here. But I like both. I really do. They're totally different, but they both kind of totally work for me. And I'm not sure if this is going to become my style. The whole thing was an exercise in finding kind of a unique style for myself that would incorporate things I'm actually good at with the watercolor that I'm not so good at. And I enjoyed doing it, and I like the way it turned out, but I'm not sure if I want to do this all the time. So I think I'll just keep looking and see if I can't find something that is kind of me, something of my own. But if you enjoy doing this, by all means, try it out. It's a lot of fun. And as you can see, it's kind of random, and it's creative in a non-specific way, if that makes any sense. So I'm just going to sign my work on the bottom here, and then we're going to call it a day. And I hope you enjoyed my fly by the seat of your pants mandala making. And I hope you go out and do some of your own, because it really is kind of freeing and fun and a good way to just kind of relax and not think about the problems in the world. So I guess that's what mandalas really are for, in a certain amount of way. I mean, it's a form of creative meditation, which works better if you don't have me babbling in your ear. So go do it by yourself and enjoy it. For now, toodles. And you can come see the rest of my weird work at Adventures in Menopause, or on my YouTube page. My YouTube is under Joy Gillard, and my blog is under http://survivinglifeover40.com. So you can come check me out there. Have a good day.